Hi everyone and good morning. If you are watching this video, it means that you have finished writing down and answering topic 6 past your paper to revision, and you're right here to do your corrections. So firstly, congratulations and well done for always trying your best every day. I'm always proud of you guys. Okay. So let's start with the first question. First question says that in figure 4.1 shows a section through the leaf of the plant, and if you guys need to know, this type of section is what we call a cross section or a transverse section, which is what I always tell you guys when you guys eat your tapakuda. That is how you cut your tapakuda. So imagine that is the leaf and you're cutting it like that, and like it's a very very thin piece of the leaf. Okay, so I'm gonna erase that part. All right, it says here to state the letters. So whenever you're doing exam questions, I want you guys to also focus on what the instructions are saying. It says here to state the letters that identify each of the following. It means that you state the letters that you can find in this photo. So if we have a look, there are a few letters that are shown. We have M, L, K, J, H, I, and G as well. Okay, so let us try to identify what these are before we answer the question. So M right here is actually referring to, if I actually zoom in, all right, so if you guys can see that it didn't touch the upper epidermal cells at all. So this is actually referring to that layer over here, which is actually your cuticle. And if we have a look at G there, it's referring to the cells right here. So when they look like that, it means that the group of cells, the tissue that is over there, and we call that one the upper epidermis. You have these long-ish looking cells, and we call it L here, and that is the palisade mesophyll, and K refers to the spongy. H right here refers to the top part, and that is the xylem, and the bottom are your phloem. And J refers to these two bean-shaped cells here, and these are your guard cells. Now that we have identified all of these letters, now we can start answering the question. So part 1, the region containing cells with the greatest number of chloroplasts. So if we can identify which ones are the one that contains chloroplasts, actually, it would definitely be L and K and also J. These are the only tissues or cells that contain chloroplast. However, the question asks you about the greatest number. Greatest means that they contain the most number of chloroplasts, and that is the characteristic of the palisade mesophyll layer. And you can see that the answer here is only 1 point, therefore there's only one answer here, which is L. Okay, next question, part 2, two regions that contain no chloroplast at all. So cells with no chloroplast. All right, so it can't be these three. So the only ones that we have left, remember it says cells, so the cuticle is not a cell. So we're not going to consider that. We're not going to consider M at all. We're going to look at either G, H, or I. So you have three choices. You can say G, H, or I. I'd go for G and H, and you can go for G and I, or I and H as well. Okay, explain why figure 4.1 shows the leaf during the daylight hours. So during the daytime, we know that the cells are photosynthesizing. However, what indicates the fact that the leaf is photosynthesizing and it's daytime? One thing that we know is that once the guard cells photosynthesize in the morning and the guard cells are actually open, the stomata is open in the morning, that is the indication that it is daytime. So what is our answer? Pretty simple. You can just say that stomata is open. And that's it. Okay, next question, part C, part 1. Identify tissues labeled H and I. So identify means you have to name them. So what was H just now? H and I here, that's your vascular bundle. So the H is the xylem and I is your phloem. Describe the functions of these two tissues, and you have 4 marks. You have actually a lot of things to say. I'm gonna try to make it a bit more simpler. So it says these two tissues, so please try to identify which tissue that you want to talk about. So let's start with H, which is the xylem. Carries. Oh, my handwriting is not that great today. I'm sorry. I'm just going to erase this because of my handwriting. H carries water and mineral. Is that how you spell Ariel, or is that Little Mermaid? Let me just check. Ariel part. Gosh, I keep on getting Little Mermaid on my Google. Ariel definition. Aerial. Okay, so that is how you spell Ariel. Sorry about that. Alright. Aerial. Or aerial, which is the top part support for aerial part of the plant. Okay, now let's move on to talking about I. So I is your phloem, and I carries sucrose or sugar. Remember that they transport food, and food is made as glucose during photosynthesis, right? However, glucose can be stored as starch for storage because if there's excess glucose, and to transport this glucose is also being what was the word? Converted into sucrose for transport, basically. So it carries sucrose, and the other type of nutrient or food that they actually carry is amino acid. And you have to say from where. And translocation is the name of the process. So over here, I'm just going to identify for you guys how do you get the 4 marks. So by looking at the answer scheme, saying that carries water is 1 mark, and then saying mineral salts is also another mark, and saying support is also 1 mark. Carrying sucrose is 1 mark. Saying amino acid is also 1 mark. And saying that it's from the leaf, so you have to say from the leaf, that's 1 mark. To the rest of the plant, I think that is considered as the same mark. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points, and you can actually get 4 marks by, you have 6 things to say to get 4 marks, but the maximum points you can get here is 4. So as long as you mention 4 points, you definitely can get your full mark for that question. Okay, now part D. Name a gas that would gradually increase in the concentration in the airspace during the hours of darkness. So this is during nighttime, and explain your answer. So if we have a look over here, we are looking at the airspace, which is the space in here. This is the airspace. And one characteristic of the leaf at nighttime is the fact that the guard cells will not photosynthesize, so it's going to close. So whatever gas that is in here will be pretty much trapped. Okay, one thing is that evaporation still happens, doesn't it? Evaporation happens regardless of the temperature. And so actually the layer of moisture would still evaporate, and that will still be transpiration, and therefore the water vapor would actually gradually just accumulate and they can't diffuse out. Another thing is the fact that all of these cells right here are living cells. So all these living cells, what they do is that they would respire at night. Even in the morning they would respire, and since they don't photosynthesize, the carbon dioxide would also accumulate. During the day, in the morning, respiration and photosynthesis both happen at the same time, and the rate of photosynthesis is pretty high. So carbon dioxide, there would be less carbon dioxide being available in the airspace. So usually in the morning, we would definitely see oxygen gas coming out of the plant. Okay, that's just an extra bit I want to talk about, but let's focus on the fact that this is nighttime. So during nighttime, again, we have carbon dioxide, a lot of carbon dioxide being accumulated, and also water vapor, because water vapor is also a gas. So it's really up to you. I'm going to give you guys 2 answers. Alright, so the first answer I'm going to give you guys is the carbon dioxide. So you can say carbon dioxide. Right, if we're looking over here, carbon dioxide is already 1 point. If you say respiration or respire, that'll be 1 point. And if you say that guard cells are closed, that's your 3rd point. So I'm going to give you guys the alternative. So let me just make it into What color should I go for? Should I go for indigo? Is that okay? Alright, you can say water vapor. So in the case of water vapor, what are we going to say is sorry, it is, I'm just gonna write the same thing, it's just my spelling, and not spelling, my handwriting. Water vapor, escape, can't escape, 아이고, 미안해. Alright, can I move? Okay, I want to move this a bit up, but I'm not sure if I can do that. Oh, nice, nice. Great, move this up a little bit. That if you guys read the PDF, you can see everything. Okay, so over here, let's give the marks as well. So water vapor is 1 mark. Transpiration occurs, so transpiration is 1 mark. Or if you see evaporation, I'm sure that'll be also like 1 mark. And seeing the fact that they can't escape, guard cells are closed, is 1 mark. So these are how you can get your points for part D. Okay, now we're looking at part 2.A. Alright, explain how wilting occurs in a plant. We have covered this a little bit when we were doing, I think, the paper 1, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't really go through this in detail in our lesson videos, but the idea of wilting is when you actually have transpiration rate is greater than absorption of water. This means that the plant root hair cells are not absorbing enough water to replace the water that is lost by transpiration. That is how you get wilting occurring. Alright, so how do you explain that and try to answer this question? So firstly, we say that or you can talk about so for this part, I'm giving you guys an option. You can just say water is lost via transpiration, or you can say water is lost via evaporation. So this is like the sentence. You would stop here, or you would like continue from here to like here. I'm going to check how to spell flaccid. Do you have two C's or just one C? Yep, it's double C. Flaccid. Flaccid means soft, hanging loosely or limply. So FLACCID. So the last part you can talk about pretty much any of the conditions that would influence or encourage a high transpiration. So you can say it can be caused by high temperatures or low humidity or strong winds. So you can talk about that. Alright, so what is our first point? Water is lost via transpiration, that's 1 point. Or you can say evaporation and then lost through the stomata, that will be your 1 point is saying that water is lost. The second one is how it's lost, which is transpiration or evaporation through the mesophyll cells, like that. And then the second point is saying that the rate is faster. So water loss is faster than it is gained, that's 1 point. And then you can say that cells become flaccid, and that's why they are limp and there's less support. That is what the definition of like wilting is. So you have the leaf when it's turgid and then when it's flaccid. So it kind of goes down. And this can be caused by, so saying that any of the factors that would actually encourage transpiration, like high temperature, that will encourage a lot of evaporation. And then you have low humidity, that would encourage the diffusion gradient to be great. So you're going to have a lot of water vapor moving out of the leaf and into the atmosphere, and you have strong winds as well. That is pretty much related to reducing humidity in the atmosphere as well. Okay, part 2, explain why mature plants don't wilt as much as newly transplanted seedlings, even if they're exposed to similar conditions. So we don't really talk much about mature and seedlings. However, mature plants versus seedlings, but there are some things that can pretty much be guessed for now, because we're only going to talk about like seedlings and their structure once we get into reproduction in plants. But seedlings are basically baby plants, right? So they are not fully developed. So one thing you can guess is that they might not have developed root systems, and maybe their xylem as well. They're not very woody, are they, when they're seedlings? They're just really tiny babies, and you you've grown them before and you see that they don't really have like woody structures. So that's your xylem. And I guess these two are the main points. Maybe you can have 2 points from there, but we have 3 points. Okay, so one more thing is that you should know the fact that the root systems also include both the xylem and also root hair cells. Maybe they don't have enough root hair cells as well. So I guess that's 3 points. Okay, looking at the answer scheme, the first one is that they talked about the mature root system. So and then we're going to elaborate how. Right, so mature plants having developed root system is 1 point, saying that they have more root hair cells, and sufficient water uptake is also another point. So you can get 2 points in this second point here. Xylem would have lignin, that is 1 point. So that is what you can say to get a full 3 marks in this part of the question. Alright, is this our last question of the day? Yes, it is. Okay, part B. Suggest an explanation for what would happen if the plant is accidentally watered with a concentrated salt solution. So when we're talking about differences in concentration, we're always looking at something to do with movement of substances. So this, especially when we're talking about salt solutions and how concentrated it is, and the word water is there, definitely we're looking at osmosis here. So if you guys remember, so if we're looking at 2 different locations here, we're talking about the root hair cells. Oh my gosh, sorry. Root hair cells versus the soil, because when you water the plant, remember you're watering the plant in the soil, and it's saying that you're putting salt water in the soil. So the soil would have salt concentration high. This means that water potential would be low, and therefore if it's low outside, that means in comparison water potential would be higher in the root hair cells, aka the plant. And osmosis works in a way that water will move from higher water potential to low water potential. That means that water will be lost from the plant itself. So when you have lots of water being lost from the plant, then obviously you're going to have wilting as well to occur. I'm just going to erase this and right down here. So firstly, plant will wilt. Okay, so the first point here is saying wilting, and then second is saying that from where, so from the tissues is 1 point, and then saying via what process, osmosis is 1 point, and saying the difference in water potential is also 1 point. And that is how you can answer this question. So I hope that you guys learned something from today's session. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Stay safe, everybody, and bye bye.